Lauren Brown.
Megan Vincent. So we're going to be reading The Day the Crayons Quit by Drew Daywalt. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them.
Hey Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. All year round I wear myself out colouring in fire engines, apples, strawberries and everything else that's red. I even work on holidays. At Christmas time I colour in all the Santa's hats and on Valentine's Day I colour in all the hearts. I need a rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon.
Dear Duncan, I'm tired of being called light brown or dark tan because I'm neither. I'm beige and I'm proud. I'm also sick of being second place to Mr. Brown Crayon, who gets to colour all of the ponies, bears and puppies, while I get to colour turkey dinners, and that's if I'm lucky, and wheat. And let's be honest, when's the last time you've seen a kid excited about colouring wheat? Your beige friend, Beige Crayon.
Dear Duncan, you colour with me, but why? Most of the time I'm the same colour as the page that you're using me on, white. I'm not even in the rainbow. I'm only seen if there's a black outline and you don't even see me then. I'm only used to colour in snow and fill the empty spaces between everything else, and that leaves me feeling, well, empty. We need to talk. Your empty friend, White Crayon.
Dear Duncan, Green Crayon, I'm writing for two reasons. The first reason is to say I'm happy with my work and I really enjoy colouring frogs, dinosaurs and trees. And I would like to congratulate you on a very successful Colouring Things Green career so far. The second reason I write is for my friends, Yellow Crayon and Orange Crayon, who are no longer speaking. They both believe they should be the colour of the sun. Please settle this soon, Duncan, as they're driving the rest of us crazy. Your happy friend, Green Crayon.
Duncan, okay, listen here, kid. You haven't used me in the past year. It's because you think I'm a girl's colour, isn't it? Speaking of which, please tell your sister that I said thank you for using me to colour in her Pretty Princess's colouring book. She did a fabulous job of staying in the lines. Now, back to us. We need to talk, because could you please just use me to colour in some pink dinosaurs, monsters, or even cowboys? Goodness knows they could use a bit of colour. Your unused friend, Pink Crayon.
Well, poor Duncan just wanted to colour, and of course he wanted his crayons to be happy, and that gave him an idea. When he showed his teacher his new picture, she gave him a good work sticker and a gold star for creativity.
So the Day the Crayons Quit can be used in relation to the national curriculum. This can be used through spoken language. Children can articulate and justify answers, arguments and opinions. They can justify how each crayon is feeling by understanding the language that is being used. They can justify their answer with specific examples from the story. An example of this is Red Crayon. He feels angry because he's being overworked. Some pupils may agree with what Red Crayon is saying, however some may disagree, as they may feel as though he feels he should be grateful and should be appreciated that he's being used. They should also consider and evaluate different viewpoints, attending to and build on contributions of others. This links to the first point. They should listen to each other and build on what others are saying. It doesn't matter if they agree or disagree, they should be able to understand each other's opinions. And this means that they need to be listening actively so they can respond to each other appropriately. And they can also participate in discussions, presentations, performances, role-play, improvisations and debates. Pupils can take part in role play, which will help improve their confidence, spoken language and also standard English. It also helps them with their memory skills, as they have to remember their lines. And they can do the role play so that they can become the character and obviously build on their confidence. And it can also be used when reading, so in comprehension. So children can explain clearly what they're reading and what is understood is read to them. They can recreate the story in their own words, which means they need to actively listen to gather the information. They can also make inferences on the basis of what is being said and done. So they need to listen carefully to the language being used to infer what each crayon is feeling. An example of this is Beige Crayon. He feels as though he's tired, he's beige and he is proud, and he feels as though he's second place. So the children can infer this to understand that he's feeling annoyed, and they can also predict what might happen on the basis of what is read so far. So pupils can predict how the crayons are going to feel. So for example, they can predict what Yellow Crayon and Orange Crayon are going to argue about from what Green Crayon has said.
So we're just going to discuss some of the theories which supports language development. The first being Skinner, who believes children learn language through imitation and operant conditioning and positive reinforcement. He believes that we imitate language from others as we are born with a fresh slate and we build our vocabulary from those around us. For example, when children are babies and the parents will say to them, "Mum, mum, mum," to get them to copy them, when the child is listening to the parent saying this word, they start to make the sound, and then after repetition and doing it lots of times with the children, they will then repeat the word mum, and of course parents will have a really big reaction, they'll be really happy, and this encourages the children to repeat the word. Then we've got Chomsky. So Chomsky is the opposite to Skinner, and he believes that there is a biological system in our brain called the language acquisition device, which allows us to learn the rules of language. He believes that language is far too complex to learn through others, and that there must be something biologically in our brains which allows us to access language. He also believes that there's a critical period where we learn language. So there's a grammar switch in our brains which is flicked for around the first few years of our life, and once that switch is flicked off, it is much more difficult for us to acquire language. For example, if any of us have learned a language in secondary school and never experienced learning a language before, we know it's much more difficult because we haven't been exposed to that language beforehand.
So speaking and listening in the classroom, it can be used to help with reading and writing, and it can also develop their pupils' reading skills and writing skills further. If children are able to speak in sentences, they'll be able to speak clearly about what they want to write down onto paper. Therefore, when writing occurs, it'll be easier for them. If they are also able to speak about it out loud, other pupils will be able to correct them if anything doesn't make sense. This will also improve their confidence and will allow the students to become more fluent with their spoken language. Children should also be able to read effectively, as when they're reading information off the board, worksheets or even books, if they don't understand it, they're not going to be able to complete the work effectively. So if schools are lucky enough to have TAs or parents coming to help, they can have that extra time, little bit of reading time or writing time with the TAs, and this can be done one-to-one or in small groups, and that links to Teacher Standard 5, which is adapting to the strengths and the needs of the pupils. And when pupils are of an older age, they'll be able to read more challenging books, which means they'll be able to access extended vocabulary, and they can discover different genres which will make them more creative with their writing. It also links with effective communication. So there's different registers. There's static, formal, consultative, casual and intimate. Children on a day-to-day basis talk in casuals. This is between friends, and standard English is usually forgotten about. With teachers, it is a consultative approach, so they need to understand that standard English does need to be used. Role play can also help with this. For example, in a classroom they could have a role play area, and it could be a doctor's surgery, and you have the doctor and the patient, and the children have to distinguish who is who by the language that is being used. And then also you can speaking and listening in the classroom can be done by asking questions. So teachers should ask more open questions as it demands more thought to answer. So that means the children need to be actively listening so they can respond appropriately to the questions that are being asked. And that links to Standard 6, as teachers can informally assess the pupils, as they can hear what the pupils are saying, as they can assess their standard English and how fluent that the children are talking.
So, after all of this, why do teachers then neglect speaking and listening in the classroom? Well, lots of teachers believe that a noisy classroom is disruptive and not productive, and just not that they're not in control anymore. Therefore, you will see lots of English lessons where children now have quiet music on in the background and the children are writing by themselves. However, some children need the opportunity to discuss ideas to be able to feel like they can produce a piece of writing. And also the National Literacy Strategy has a teacher-led focus with minimal opportunities for children to extend their spoken language, and as it is not assessed, it is perceived as not important. However, for children acquiring language is pivotal for them to be able to produce a piece of writing. So then there's different types of talk in the classroom. The first being collective, where teachers and children address learning tasks together. Reciprocal, teacher and children listening to each other to share ideas. Cumulative, teachers and children sharing their own ideas to build them together. And supportive, sharing ideas without fear of judgment and helping one another. So we've just got a few examples of how you could use collective in linking to the book. So the teacher could read the children to the book and then do a short reading comprehension activity on a specific letter from the book, and the children can answer questions about why the character's feeling that way and why they might be feeling it and how Duncan may respond. Then another example for cumulative talk, where teachers and children share their own ideas to build them together. There could be an activity where they will read the book and then the teacher will ask the children to write a letter back to one of the letters chosen by the child from the perspective of Duncan. So then the children have to be able to read the letter, understand the character's feelings to be able to write an appropriate response back in the perspective